So that means that I think you have 2 years, I don't know what they call that period of time, you're under your kind of grade, your probationary. I think that's what they call that. So that allows you to work through the probationary period of time. And then at the end of those 2 years, when you're out from under the probationary period, then you can think about renewing the contract or spreading it out a little bit more. That's what I think personally.
Does he set the number of years out? Or is that up for negotiation, or do you know?
We didn't talk about that. I think that would be up for negotiation, actually. The only thing he wants to make sure is that he feels like the right recommendation's been made as far as the ranking of the candidates. Under the system now, under state takeover, he actually determines, as long as there's takeover, he determines the superintendent's term, I suppose, by the length of the takeover. So he may want to have a hand in that, although we didn't, I have to be honest, it's not that specifically. We discussed some other parameters, but not that one. And then we tell people not to contact school board members. That works different ways. There is such a thing as I'm a candidate and I won't contact you directly, but I have friends. So, you know, it works different ways on that. But anyway, I think this is good because this makes a cleaner process. And most candidates that I work with, they will not contact board members. They may use friends, and they may use relatives and neighbors, but they themselves will not do that. So, and we live in an imperfect political world, so we know that happens. So let's just, you know, let's think about that. And then, now, here is an important part here. Under the Freedom of Information Act, of which you are bound, we have to disclose the names of persons who apply for the position. And we have to disclose those for different reasons. So we simply say, during the context of this process, if someone were to ask for the names, or you want to release them, or someone makes a FOIA, which we hope they don't do, then we can provide you the names of people who've applied for the position. That's just being fair and open to the public. We did that in Wood County. That turned out to be very good, that process they used there, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You have to realize that you're a public body. People who apply for positions, those applications are not ours. We're the caretaker of them. They belong to the boards, and they will have to be released to the public if someone demands them, which again, we hope they don't, or if you have a period in the search that you feel like they should be released. So that's no heartburn, really. I don't think. I think it's a good process. It's fair. It's open to the public. It lets people know who's in the running. It lets people know who has an interest in the position. So anyway, that's something we put in here as well. The rest of this is like deadlines. Also, a little bit about your county's pretty good too. Your website, any tourism things. For instance, Pocahontas County, they have a lot of tourism, different things they're putting in on their website, on their application form. So you can do that as well. Now that walks you through the application form, or the notice of position vacancy. So what it does is tells you that the position's available, tells you who can qualify for it, you know, if you can qualify, tells you how to apply for it, a little bit of history about the benefits, a little bit of history about the system maybe, and then the process for applying. So that's the notice of position vacancy. So the first thing you have to do is declare, in your case, you need to, as a board, and Dr. Payne, however this works, and I'm not sure of the workings here, someone will have to pick out the day that you make the notice of position vacancy known. It may be March 31, March 12, whatever day it is. You have to have that determination of the day of the notice for position vacancy being made known. And I don't know how that's done. I don't know if you need to get Dr. Payne, that's another one we didn't talk about. I don't know if you need to get Dr. Payne's approval for that, or if you go on and vote on that as a board. And then they would approve that once you vote on it, probably. So the first thing is you have to declare the notice of position vacancy, that it will be filled by July 1, 2010, when the term begins. So that's the first thing I think you have to do, is declare that there is a vacancy. And then, once you declare there is a vacancy, what we do from there is we send the notice out to all the superintendents, which means it goes to all the central offices, to the RESA directors, to all the county board presidents, to people on our listserv, to a number of people get this, and of course then we advertise it in the newspaper as well, which is in the next tab. Now, are there any questions on this part? I think the most pressing thing right now, if you have, unless you have application or notice of position vacancy questions, I think the most pressing thing now would be to get the notice of position, you know, to declare, to get a notice that you need to get the notice that you're going to have the position available as of July, an official record of that somehow.
So that has to be in the board meeting.
When is your next board meeting?
Monday.
I think if you could get it in the agenda for Monday, that would be a good thing to do, that there's a notice that, you know, that there will be a vacancy occurring in the superintendent position as of July 1. You hereby declare that you're going to post a notice of position vacancy. That's what you would need to get into your minutes on Monday. I would think you could do it that way. Yes, sir.
At that time, Howard, you really don't have to get into the specifics of that posting at that time, do you? You're just advising that there is going to be a vacancy. In other words, the specifics of eventually what's going to be laid out there wouldn't have to be determined at that time.
You could determine at that time. It's probably better that you do both things at the same time.
Because as we talked a moment ago, there's various things, what our county might have to offer that
Yeah.
opposed to others, and some of those
And you can work
more
those-
specific things. You think you should do both at the same time?
Well, let's do it, let's think about it this way. You could say at the meeting on the next week, you could say that there is, I think it's on the 15th, isn't it, that Monday, the 15th? What I think you might want to say is, we're now noticing that there will be a vacancy in the superintendent position to be filled by July 1. Then you could work as a board, figuring out all the different things you want to put in the application form that are unique to your board. So, and you could do that with us, actually.
I mean, I guess my question is, those wouldn't have to be finalized that same night on the 15th?
No, no.
Okay.
Yeah, you can work with me on those, because usually boards do. They'll put together things that they wish to have in the application, like the benefits and all that. And you don't have to have other meetings for that. You can just email me that or whatever else.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah,
We weren't necessarily going to have all that completed by Monday.
No, no, I don't think so. It might be better to do that, but it's really a little bit tight.
I understand.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough to do that unless you really kind of thought it out in advance. Plus, we also need those other documents too, like the vision statement, commission statement, the policy and all that, so. So those come into play there, so just getting it announced will be the first thing. And then once you get everything in place, then give that to me and then we'll run it through the procedure we use to get the notice out to the counties.
And like you said earlier, Dr. Payne, his input on the length of the contract and all,
Yeah, we have to work
that'd be
that
a part
out.
of that in there too.
And I can do that part with him, or I can carry some of that. Then the next thing we have is under tab number 3, we have the advertisement that we typically use. This is from Mason County. It simply says that, gives a little bit about your number of schools you have, gives about the number of teachers you have, service personnel, your budget, if you have an excess levy, which I think you do, your schools of excellence, et cetera. And that is put in the Gazette or whatever other papers you're advertising, which now that brings us to another discussion point. We used to advertise, you may want to advertise in the Huntington paper, but we would think the Huntington and the Gazette would be, and the local paper would be the ones that you would want to advertise in. Those are the papers that you don't have to go to Martinsburg unless you just want to. Martinsburg, Beckley and all that, because most people who are interested in these type of jobs in state, they read the Gazette Mail on Sunday and they'll see the position in here. Now, again, advertising is another thing that you can work out on your own. If you want to advertise in different areas, you can do so, but I'd recommend Huntington, Charleston, and the local paper as a matter of courtesy. So that's the kind of things I recommend. Now,